I don't know if any of you have ever heard of this man. His name is Dave Hollis. I'd never heard of him until this year. Not that long ago, he was an executive at Disney. So he had reached the pinnacle of his career. I mean, super wealthy, very successful. And then his wife really became successful as well. She wrote a book called Girl, Wash Your Face. And I'd never heard of that. But she became a public speaker, a multi-millionaire with all of her writing and speaking, as she encouraged women to embrace their imperfections. So super popular. And as he watched her success grow, here he is an executive at Disney. He was like, where are you going to go from there? But he decided he's going to do the same thing. So he quit his job at Disney. He started writing books and doing podcasts and speaking, and they do live streaming together, and he would be a featured coach. And all, just everything that America says you need to have, they had. A marriage that seemed to be going well. They had 4 healthy kids. They had gobs and gobs and gobs of money, super successful in their careers. And then everything started to fall apart. In 2021, their marriage ended. And they got divorced. Her career really started to struggle. And so did his popularity on his live streaming. And it all came to a head one day when he was live streaming after he'd written this new book, Built Through Courage. This was his new book. He'd written this. He'd spent 18 months writing it. And he did a live stream sitting on his back porch in front of his pool with his kids inside the house, and he was trying to get all of his followers, he had 500,000 followers, to buy his new book. Because pre-sales before it came out were really low. So he was on with live stream with his followers for 2 hours, begging and at points demanding that they pre-order his new book. And it got crazy. At one point you can see he was saying, buy my book or unfollow me. But that's not what got him in trouble. On this 2-hour live stream, at the 1-hour mark, his 4-year-old daughter walked out of the house and said, hey, Dad, can you make me some Mickey Mouse pancakes for breakfast? And he said, oh, yeah, let me just read more section. I'm with my audience here, and then I'll come in. And it was all captured on video. And he kept talking, promoting his book. She came out again, politely asked, hey, can you come make me some Mickey Mouse pancakes? Yeah, let me finish one more section and then I'll come in. And she did this off and on for an hour till he finally got so annoyed, he told her, get a life. You can imagine how well that went over with his online followers. The comment section blew up with people saying, turn this off and go make her some pancakes. I mean, they just went crazy. It became known online as Pancake Gate. It became quite a controversy in his life. A short time later, he came out and apologized, put out a video apologizing for his behavior. 3 months later, he shut down his Instagram account and checked himself into rehab. And 1 year after that, he was dead at the age of 47. Cocaine, fentanyl, and alcohol overdose. He died at the age of 47. You know, I'd never heard of him. And I'd never heard about any of the stuff that was happening until later this year. And I read this account and I was like, oh my goodness, this is like everything America says you would want in life. You want lots and lots of money, right? Because that's what life is about. And here he has scads of money. You want a huge house with a pool. He's got that. You want a family. You want success in your career. An executive at Disney. I mean, you're not climbing the ladder much higher than that. I mean, everything America says is important, is going to make you happy, he had, and was so incredibly miserable and discontent. It reminded me, when I read the story, of something that happened with Matt Damon. So some of you recognize this actor. When he was young, ever see the movie Good Will Hunting? This movie is a brilliant movie. He won an Oscar for that at a very young age. That night, I watched a video of him not long after he won the Oscar. He went home, and after a while, he was sitting there holding, the gold statue, looking at it. And for an actor or actress, right, this is the pinnacle. This is what you strive for. No higher honor than as an actor or an actress than winning an Oscar. And he'd won it at a young age. And he said this. He said, as he looked at it, he was sitting all alone late at night. after the night he won it, and he said, imagine chasing that and not getting it, or getting it finally in your 80s or 90s, with most of your life behind you, and only then realizing what an unbelievable waste. He said he looked at the statue, and he was telling this in an interview. He said, it can't fill you up. It will never fill you up. He said, if that's a hole you have in your life, this won't fill it. Success won't fill it. Fame won't fill it. Money won't fill it. Drugs don't fill it. What does fill it? If I were to ask you a question today that's really, really important, how would you answer this in your mind? I will be happy when. When what? How do you answer that question? When you have enough to retire? When you finally retire? When you finally get married? When you finally have children? When you finally get out of that marriage? When you achieve some level of success or education? What's the answer for you? How do you answer the question of what's going to bring meaning and purpose to your life? Because over and over again, and I could tell you so many stories. I have a folder full of stories like these, of people who reached the pinnacle of their career and their success and were so miserable and so unhappy. So we want to talk about this really important theme today. We're starting a new series called Christmas at the Movies. It's something I like to do at the holiday season. And we're going to start with one of my all-time favorite holiday movies. How many of you have ever seen this movie, Klaus? It's one of my favorites. I don't have a problem putting my hand up, right? But I can see many of you have not seen this, so that's good, because this is going to be awesome to talk about. And I'm going to use this movie to talk about how to experience a meaning-filled life, because I think that the biblical messages in this are just one of the clearest, some of the clearest I've ever seen. I want to ask you to open your program, take out the notes you'll find inside, grab these. If you're watching on our YouTube channel, go to our web page, our web address at penuelchurchlife.com, and you can grab the notes there. So we're going to jump right into this today. I'm only going to give you the first point. I'm not going to talk about it, but I wanted to tell you this so you can see the contrast. I'll tell you what doesn't work to give you meaning in this world. What will never work is a self-centered life. If this world becomes all about you and what you want in your dreams, your accomplishments, your success, you will not be happy, joyful, or find meaning and purpose in that. Because that's not what God created you for. So I just wanted you to see that. It's not the result of a self-focused life. The result of a self-focused life is pretty miserable. And all of you know that, but it's a good reminder, especially when you watch this movie, because it gives you the opposite. And the biblical message, and what Jesus would say to us is that the real meaning-filled life is found when we are serving, not being served. So that's the second one. I want you to jump down to number 2 on your notes there and put this in there. Our purpose in life is only found on the other side of serving. And this is where I think the movie is so powerful for a nation like ours, that is so wrapped up in selfies and self-focus and self-honors and self-awards and self-advancements. This movie really shows the biblical message about how serving is where it's really at. So if you've not seen the movie, which again, I love that so many of you haven't, here's what it's about. It's about this young man named Jesper. Jesper is incredibly self-centered. He would be a perfect American. So it is all about him all the time. You know, if he was wearing a t-shirt, he would say, this is all about me. And that's what it was about. His dad was incredibly rich. And again, the movie was set a long time ago, before cars and planes and automation and all those things. And his dad was the postmaster general for the entire nation. So he had wealth and power. And he was so disgusted by his lazy son who did nothing but mooch off him that he got him into the post office and trained him to be a postman. And Jesper didn't want to work. He wanted to sit at home, caviar, silk sheets, drinking his sherry, doing nothing, having his butler bring him food and his slippers and everything else. That's all he wanted to do. And so his dad got him into this school to get trained, and he blew every test on purpose. Whatever it was, he just didn't even try, blew it off, because he wanted to go back to his life of comfort and silk sheets. And so he thought, if I blow this, Dad will stop asking me and I can go back to it. Well, when his trainer reports to his dad how he's done and tells him he's failed miserably at everything, Jesper's assuming, okay, that's great. Now it means I get to go back to my life of comfort. Oh no, Dad has a different plan. Dad is furious. He knows what his son has done. And so his dad says, you're a postman. You pass. And on top of that, I'm sending you to Smeerensburg, which is this island country at the way northern part of their kingdom. And it's like, you take a boat to get there. It's this whaling community. And he says, you have to establish a working post office in 1 year. And if 6,000 letters don't go through your post office in 1 year, you are cut off financially. No more money, no more apartment, no more nothing. And he says, you can't cheat, bribe, or squirm your way out of this one. And so Jesper, of course, is ticked off. It's like, oh, my dad's making me work now. This is terrible. And so off he goes, travels all the way up north, right? I know, it sounds kind of American, right? It's like, oh my goodness, I'm 33 years old. My dad wants me to get out of his basement. I can't believe this. So anyway, so he goes all the way up north. He gets to Smeerensburg and is stunned to find that it is a horribly depressed community. I mean, they're horribly depressed. I mean, they're in the middle of a civil war between the Crumbs and the Ellenbows, who've been fighting for generations, like the old Hatfields and McCoys in our history. That's what they have there. And they can't stand each other. They have museums where they maintain the history of how they've hurt each other. So it's just constant conflict going on. Matter of fact, and when we get to the post office, there's chickens. The walls are falling down, the roof, nobody's mailing any letters, 0 letters. He's got to get 6,000 in 1 year. He's cut off. And so he is terrified. So he goes through the community trying to talk people into sending letters, and they don't care. Nobody wants to send a letter. Nobody. And so he knows he's in trouble. He's got to get all this done in 6 years. And so he goes to every single home on the island trying to talk to them about sending letters. Nobody will even hear him. And so the only home he hasn't visited is the home of this man, a woodcutter named Klaus, who lives way out on his own in the far side of the island. So he travels all the way over to Klaus's house, and he meets Klaus, this enormous woodcutter, and the surprising thing is when he's in the house, he sees all these toys. I mean, just walls of toys. And he's like, this is kind of strange. Big guy lives all alone, has all these toys. What's going on? And the backstory is, when Klaus was young, he was married, and he and his wife were going to have a huge family, and so he built all these toys for all the children they were going to have. And tragically, she died young. They never had any children. And Klaus had become a hermit, lived alone, turned in on himself in his grief. Jesper comes, runs away, and when he runs away, he leaves behind a picture that was drawn in the town by this young boy, and it was a cartoon of him behind those bars in his house. And the giant of a man, the woodcutter, picks up the picture and he looks at it, and for the first time in who knows how long, he feels something other than his food. He feels something for this boy. And his heart goes out to him. By the way, you do know that this is where all of life change happens. Our lives change when we start to see and feel the needs of the people around us who are in pain. And the movie just portrays it perfectly. This is how life change happens on this planet. When we stop making it about us, we let ourselves see the needs of the people around us, and we let that hit our heart. But he's so concerned about this young boy that he takes one of the toys off of his shelf, wraps it up, he goes and finds Jesper, because he's the postman, he's got to deliver this, and he makes him deliver it in the middle of the night. And so Jesper gets in the house and gets out of the house, and in funny ways, and then the woodcutter watches outside the window as the boy comes down and finds his present and opens it up, and he starts to play with the toy that the woodcutter has made for him. And as he watches this scene play out in front of him for the first time in forever, he feels joy and happiness, things he hasn't felt in years. I love the imagery, because it's exactly what Jesus would say to all of us. The joy and meaning that we're looking for isn't going to be found in another pile of bills, another stack of money, another trophy that sits empty, in a box in your basement, or in upgrading your car. It's not going to be found there. The life that is full of joy and meaning is a life focused on serving others, not on being served. As a matter of fact, Jesus took this so seriously. Do you know that he actually said that you shouldn't even be a leader in his church unless this is your primary focus? Did you know that? Jesus pulled his disciples together one day. I love this. He said, whoever wants to be a leader among you must be your servant. And whoever wants to be first among you must be the slave of everyone else. Imagine if that was our qualification list for somebody who wanted to serve in a church. You want to teach in a church? You want to pastor a church? Well, here's our first qualification. Are you really, really, really a servant? Give us your serving credentials, not your education credentials. Give us your serving credentials. But Jesus said this is supposed to be the defining quality if anyone wants to lead. We'll be first among the followers of Christ, then the way up is down. And he said, here's why, because even the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve others and to give his life as a ransom for many. So he said, your service is rooted in the fact that that's what I'm modeling for all of you. This is what life is about. Life isn't about a self-focus and a self-promotion and a self-aggrandizement. It's not about self-anything. It is about the letting go of self so that you can serve like Jesus. That's what it's about. And that's what Jesus modeled. In the movie, one of the things I absolutely love is it does show how hard it can be to serve. So I can stand here and say, hey, go serve. Because serving is the key to the great life, and serving is the key to the good life. And it's, if you've ever tried it, you know what happens. It's hard. Because there are people who don't appreciate you, and there are people who take you for granted, right? Ever have that? Ever have someone not even say thank you when you've served them? And all of a sudden, what rises up inside of us is self again, right? Like, how dare they treat me this way, right? See how easy self just rises up? I felt it. I felt it many times. Like, oh, how dare they do that to me? And Jesus would say, no, Brian, your attitude's not quite where I need to be yet. And the question that I absolutely love that really emerges to me is really, how do you think about yourself? And I gave you 4 questions. I want you to jump down to the 4th one. There's the 4 bullet points, only the 4th one. So I'm skipping the others because I really want you to just think about this. What do you consider, how do you think about yourself? When you think about yourself and the labels that you would use for yourself in this world, is it really, really clear that the label that needs to be is the label of servant? So I know who I am by the grace of God. I'm his son who serves in this world. That's who I am. Only by the grace of God am I part of his family, and I am his son who serves in this world. There are levels of serving in Christianity. If you've been around church for a while, you've seen all of this. You've seen all of it. Isn't it true that there are some Christians who never serve? They're Christians in name only. They never serve. They don't think about serving. Maybe they go to service once in a while, maybe they don't, but they still say that they follow Jesus. By the way, Jesus has no comprehension of this level even existing. It's such an American mentality. It's such a first world mentality. He can't comprehend of it. It is nothing to do with what he wants. So then there are some who serve only when it's convenient. And there are a lot of Christians who serve at this level. If it's easy for me, it's not too difficult, doesn't take too much of my time or too much of my money, then I'll serve. And there are a lot of Christians who live at that level. Not what he's asking for. Then there are some who serve sacrificially. I mean, this church has lots of people who serve sacrificially. They serve and serve and serve and serve and serve. I've known lots of Christians in my life who serve very sacrificially. They give of their time and their money consistently. But the final level that Jesus wants to move all of us to is where we acknowledge and accept our true role. This is my mindset about myself. I am a servant. And this is the level where you get to experience God and joy and meaning in this world. Let me show you what I mean. A couple of weeks ago, I was talking to one of my coworkers, and she told me a story, and she gave me permission to share this with you, because I was so blown away by it. She said, in 2014, she was a single mom. She had a son she was raising alone. And she did the Christmas thing like we do here. It's like presents under the tree, and a few hours later she noticed, that's it? We're done now? And she decided, I don't want Christmas to be this way anymore. She said, I wanted to raise my son to embrace the true spirit of Christmas, which I loved. She wrote this. She said, as a time of giving and togetherness. So back in 2015, the next year, she did something different. She started what she calls the 12 days of Christmas for her and her son. 12 days of Christmas were 12 days leading up to Christmas. She and her son would sit down and chart out every day what they were going to do as random acts of kindness and giving during that entire 12-day focus. I thought this was amazing when she was telling me. That's why I said, can you write this out for me? And so she did. And she said, and here's some of the things that she and her son have done over the years, in the 8 years that they've done it now. They've gone to nursing homes. Huge need there. Huge need. They play games with them, or they will bring them snacks or treats. One year they bought smiley balloons for every room and just went and visited every person in the nursing home. Isn't that awesome? Imagine, by the way, how different would our society be if every child was raised to think that it's about giving and not about getting? How much would that have impacted all of us? It was incredible. One of the things they did that I thought was amazing is they would buy gift cards to gas stations. They live down south, so this is a gas station chain like our Quick Trip up here. And they would put this note on it: if you need it, keep it. If you don't, leave it. And she had her hashtag 12 days of Christmas and spread the cheer. And then they would put it on gas pumps around the city. Isn't that cool? You know how would you feel? You pull up to get gas and you see that $20 gift card there with that note on it. I would never touch it, but it would make me smile. Would it make you smile? It would make me go, oh my goodness, what a cool thing to do, right? I thought that was so creative. They volunteer for Toys of Tots every year. Sometimes they bring toys, but they always volunteer at Toys for Tots in their community. They volunteer at the food pantry, and they bring food in, and they serve in that area. One of the other creative things they do, they go to the store and they buy cheap little scratch-off lottery tickets, and they go into parking lots and put them under people's windshield wipers. Wouldn't that be cool if somebody won $5,000 because you put a scratch-off lottery? Would that make your Christmas a little better? It means like, whoa. And maybe nobody won anything. And maybe somebody won $1. But who knows, right? Talk about, though, making somebody feel a little better at the holidays. They also help out at the Humane Society. They find out what they need at that, and they volunteer and donate things to the Humane Society. And they do coat drives. And that one costs them nothing. They literally just go through their closet, find what they don't wear, and they bring it to a coat drive. One of my favorite ones is she told me about was Ding Dong Ditch Elf Style. And what they do is they go to a store and they buy all kinds of fun little things, and make a goodie basket, and then they will go up to people's houses with a note. It always has a really nice note in there. Put it on the doorstep, ring the doorbell, and run. And leave surprise presents for people. I mean, can you imagine if this was your holiday every year for 12 days? Year after year after year? What impact would that have? You don't have to guess, because she told me. She said, each moment was purposeful and taught my son about giving back and being kind in his community. We sit down and plan each day, and then we spend the time together shopping and buying all the goodies and mapping out our whole 12 days, and to see the smiles on the faces of strangers, and to see the pure joy from friends and family in the community as we play out some of these crazy ways of giving back has warmed my soul over the years. Imagine how much that would warm our soul. You know, it's just what Jesus said. If you want to have the good life, then you got to become a servant. You have to be a servant in this world. Now, we don't have 12 days left before Christmas. Especially by the time, the video editor is done and getting this posted. But you can still do something, right? Or you could do the 12 days of the first of the year, right? And see what happens. But serving is really where it's at. And the reason why serving is so important to Jesus, why he makes such a big deal about it, matter of fact, you can't lead in this church if you're not a servant, is because God knows, and what the life of Jesus reveals is that kindness creates kindness. Kindness creates kindness. In the movie, Jesper, the next day after delivering that present, that little boy tells all of his friends, hey, you know what? Because he saw Mr. Klaus outside his window looking at him as he's playing with a toy, and he saw the letter that he'd written, the picture, and so he tells all of his friends, if you send a letter to Mr. Klaus, he might bring you a toy. So the next day, Jesper hears a knock at the post office door. He opens it up, and there are kids with letters. The first letters to go through the post office. And all of a sudden, Jesper gets this idea. If I convince kids to write letters to Mr. Claus, then I might get my 6,000 letters and get out of here back to a life of luxury. And so he tells all the kids how to fill out a letter, and you can fill out a letter, and you can get a toy from Mr. Claus, and then, I can get out of here. He doesn't tell them that part. But not all the kids get toys. One of them, this little brat, who, as you can see, about to torture Jesper, confronts Jesper. Because Jesper, every night, Mr. Klaus and him go through the community dropping off the toys to every kid who's read the letter. Well, he gets into that brat's house, and he is about to leave a toy, and he looks and sees this kid who's tortured him. He's like, I'm not giving this kid a toy. He looks around, and he sees a piece of coal on the floor. He picks the coal up, puts it in the kid's sock. And so the kid confronts him the next day. He's like, what is this nonsense you're telling us? I didn't get a toy. I got a coal in my sock. And Jesper says, oh, that's because he only brings toys to the good kids. And he's always watching. And of course, all the little children are like, oh, I have to be good to get a toy? And you can imagine what the kids do, right? They spread out through the community and looking for any opportunity to do good. And then they show video, scene after scene of the little kids doing good everywhere they can go. And again, all of this is from a selfish motivation, right? But it doesn't matter, because when you start to serve, even when your motives are wrong, things start to happen. And so in one scene, instead of stealing their neighbor's berries, they pick the berries and deliver them to the neighbor. And then the neighbor's so surprised by this that she makes a cake and brings the cake back over to their house, and they bring a pie. And all of a sudden, they're doing all this kindness to each other. And kindness becomes the focus, because kindness creates kindness. And then there's this old man who's just a grumpy old mean man. He's got a big fence around his house, and he gets hurt. And the kids take care of him. They feed him soup, and they do his chores, and they take care of him. And so he takes that giant fence and he tears it down. He builds a playground. And over again, the community starts to be transformed as they get into these kindness circles, in these kindness cycles. As people start repaying kindness after kindness after kindness. And then in one of my all-time favorite movie lines, Klaus says, a true selfless act always sparks another. A true selfless act always sparks another. Now, the kids weren't being selfless, right? They were going to get something from it. Jesper was going to get something from it, but that is entirely right. A true selfless act, when it is selfless, because you're just serving others out of love and compassion for them, that always sparks another. And this is what's lost in American Christianity today. We literally think that we have to adopt the tactics of the world to get people to listen to us. We think we need to hang up protest signs, and we need to post mean, nasty things on social media because that's what everybody else does, and that's what we're going to do to overcome. In the Bible, the followers of Jesus understood, are you kidding? We don't play with the tactics of the world. Paul wrote to the Romans who were suffering under the hands of the Romans, persecution, and he said, don't be overcome by evil. You know what you do to those who are persecuting you? You overcome evil with good. I wish that message was getting out in Christianity more. I wish we would stop posting and stop picketing and stop holding up all the mean, nasty placards and signs that we want to create across the country, and instead, we're looking for how we could do good and show kindness, even to those that disagree with our position and may not even speak very respectfully. Because that's what Jesus said is really powerful, is that we overcome evil with good. And the reason why it works so powerfully is because it's exactly what Jesus modeled, right? We have all done things that are hurtful to our God in heaven. And what did he do? Let us have it? He could have. Instead, in unbelievable kindness, he sent his son into the world to bleed and die on a cross for all of us so we could be forgiven and made right with God. He overcame our evil with good. And this is the driving motivation for why we serve. We love each other because he first loved us. He loved us first. an understanding. By the way, if serving isn't important to you, then could it be that you don't understand how much he loves you? Could that be what's going on? He wants us to experience his kindness and then just bring that kindness in the world, because he knows what happens when kindness becomes our focus. Kindness creates kindness. You want to see two amazing examples of this? In 2014, down in St. Petersburg, Florida, a woman was going through Starbucks. And she said to the cashier, she said, I don't want to just pay for mine, I want to pay for the person behind me. And it's like, okay, no problem. So she paid for hers, and the person behind drove through. That person came through, and they said, your order's paid for. I'm like, are you kidding me? Well, I'll pay for the person behind me. And that person came through and said, your order's been paid for. They're like, really? I'll pay for the person behind me. It went on for 377 people that day. Kindness creates kindness. But you want to see one of my all-time favorite examples of that. I love that quote. Think about this. A truly selfless act will always spark another. There was this woman who was a waitress, and I didn't read what community. I think it was in Pennsylvania. She was a waitress, and one morning she was working in a restaurant, and waitresses, they don't make a lot of money. She's 23 years old as a waitress, and she was, still living with her family. And a group of firefighters from their community came in, and she knew they'd been fighting a fire all night long. They'd been up for 24 hours fighting this thing. They got it under control. They came into her restaurant, sat down, started eating. Matter of fact, one of the firefighters said to her, bring me the biggest cup of coffee you have. I mean, completely exhausted. And so she served them to the best of her ability and fed them. And when they asked for the bill, she brought the bill over, and it said, your breakfast is on me today. This 24-year-old girl. Thank you for all that you do, for serving others, for running into the places everyone else runs away from. No matter your role, you're courageous, brave, and strong, and thank you for being bold and, bad word, every day. Fueled by fire, driven by courage, what an example you are. So go get some rest. And she paid their meal. And they were so stunned by the kindness of this young girl, 24 years old. She didn't have the money to do this, she did it anyway. So they started saying, well, how can we help her out? And so they started looking into her life to see if they could find anything. They went on her social media pages, and they discovered that her dad was quadriplegic. And he was trying to figure out how to raise enough money to get a wheelchair-accessible van for her dad. So these firefighters said, let's see what we can do. So they started a GoFundMe page, trying to raise $25,000 to buy a brand new van for this man. And in a short time, they raised, as you can see, $25,770, but there's more to the story. Ellen DeGeneres found out about this, brought all of them onto the TV show, told everyone what was going on, gave them a check for another $25,000, and in a short time, that GoFundMe page went to over $86,000. And he got a brand new van, and they got money and resources to continue to take care of him because she did kindness. So if you do kindness, someone will give you a brand new van and $86,000. All right? So moral of the story right there, right? There you go. Don't you want to go, sir? Let's find someone to be kind to today. It's like, I can't promise that they might not even say thank you, right? That's just as likely. And they might not even appreciate it or even notice it. That's just as likely. But that's not our focus, is it? Because a truly selfless act, that'll spark another. And that's what Jesus called us to do. To bring his love and kindness into the world. I'm called to be a servant in this world, to bring his kindness in the world, because that's what he brought. He came and showed me incredible kindness when I didn't deserve it. And his love is the basis for my love. So some questions as we finish up today. How do you view serving in this world? Is it an option for you? Is it essential for you? Do you believe that the meaning-filled life that you're looking for is available on the other side of serving? Or do you honestly think there's something you're going to get that's going to make you happy? Hopefully you've gotten to the point where you're like, listen, I've chased it, I've gotten it, it didn't work for me. Let it go. It is on the other side of serving that you're going to find the joy you want. And is it really your goal to become a servant in this world? Is that what you're after? And I do want to challenge all of you to at least consider this idea, what my friend at work is doing. Are you willing to try a 12 days of Christmas experiment? Anyone can do this. You can do it if you're single, you can do it if you're married, you can do it if you have children or grandchildren. You can plot it out for any length of time. You can start it any time you want to. But are you willing to try an experiment to see what effect it has on you and the people around you? Let me have you bow your heads as we finish today. The amazing, this church serves a lot. But all year long, there's so many of you who give so much and you serve so sacrificially. And the reason why we do this is because we were first served by God Almighty. In his great, great love for us, he served us by giving his only Son for us. The greatest gift the world has ever known, Jesus, born into this world. And what we're celebrating at this time of year, the arrival of the Son of God into this flawed, broken, messed up world. And he lived with incredible kindness and an incredible servant. Rather than being served, he served constantly, setting the example for all of us. And the ultimate act of service, his willingness to lay down his life so that you and I could be forgiven. And maybe it's hard for you to love in this world because you haven't let him love you first. God wants to pour his love into your life. He doesn't want you just to be able to check it as a true and false. He wants you to experience his love. And maybe this is the next step for you spiritually, is to let Jesus Christ give you this gift of love. With your head bowed and your eyes closed, you can just ask him for his gift of forgiveness and eternal life, and he'll give it to you. You can just say something like this to him and say, Jesus, I want to know your love. I've heard that you gave your life on the cross for me. Would you please forgive me? Make your home inside of me. I want to experience your love and life today. In Jesus' name, amen. I want to thank all of you who watch online each week. We love to hear the emails and the messages from people about how these services are helping them grow spiritually. If you go to our website, in the upper right-hand corner at PenhillChurchLife.com, there's a button that you can check where it says, I said yes to Jesus, or I have something I want you to pray about. And you can let us know. We love when people communicate through the website this way. So if you've decided at any point to put your faith in Jesus and you prayed that prayer, let us know. We'll send you some material in the mail that can help you grow spiritually and take the next steps with Jesus. If you want us to pray about something, we have a whole team of people here who are committed to prayer, and they will pray for you each week. So again, thanks so much for tuning in each week.